Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our name is Mo Consulting, and today we are going to be talking about an overview of the management consultancy industry landscape. First, we're going to meet the team. We have 5 partners in our consulting team. We first have Mackenzie Campbell, Lauren Holder, John Wormser, Sorrel Hardin, and Jake Rabden. We are all currently strategic and corporate communication majors at Chapman University. The topic we decided to talk about sketches the global landscape of the management consultancy industry. Before we investigate this landscape, we will first discuss why analyzing the industry is difficult. Next, we will investigate key dimensions of the management consultancy industry. We will then identify the main services offered by management consultants. We will also distinguish between client sectors and geographics. We will also discuss the main differences between large and small consultancy firms. Lastly, we will compare the scope of firms in terms of service, client sectors, and client geographics. Right here, as you can see, are our learning objectives.
The management consultancy industry is extremely difficult to analyze. First off, there isn't a commonly accepted definition of what management consultancy is. Definitions vary depending on the particular study being done, and the definitions of categories also vary. Secondly, because management consultancy is not a legally enforced profession, there isn't any obligation for management consultants to register themselves. There is a voluntary registration for consultants, but the majority of them aren't registered. Third, clients of management consultancy have no interest to provide any information. A lot of clients are reluctant to make it public that they can even use management consultants. Interestingly enough, a lot of clients, usually the large ones, may not even know how much they spend on consultancy, and therefore customers of consultancy are not a source of industry data. But despite these roadblocks, some stats about the industry do exist. Government agencies typically collect industry data on a countrywide basis, while some private institutions collect regionally or globally.
The management consultancy industry is not one and the same. In other words, it is not a homogeneous industry. There are 3 main factors or dimensions that make up the industry, each helping to narrowly define and categorize the various subsections of the industry. Those 3 dimensions are consultancy services, client sectors, and client geographies. Management consultancy does not incorporate everything into one definition, but rather can be broken up into categories. Kennedy Research Information lists 5 main categories: financial, operations, information technology, human resources, and strategy. The next dimension is client sectors, which can be broken up into public sector, financial services, and healthcare manufacturing, energy, and a whole group of others. These groups help determine which client goes where and helps to bring in special management consultancy groups for each category. For instance, a business working in energy would most likely not go to a consultancy firm who specializes in healthcare, or vice versa. Within those categories, we can look at the complexity of each client business and help to fit their needs. Again, a small mom-and-pop shop would most likely use a small and local consultancy firm rather than a large and industrial one. Lastly, we look at the geography of clients. Simply put, this is where clients may live or operate out of. There are 4 main areas: North America, Europe, Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. Each region has a different environment, economical structure, and culture in which to look at. It is important in understanding the differences of each region in order to help facilitate a smooth transition into the business, but to also properly consult for them. Telling your employees to wear a red tie in one region may in fact insult the people of another region.
The weak role of foreign direct investment in South Korea limited opportunities for Western consultancies to gain a beachhead in this country, whereas in Europe, foreign direct investment by U.S. corporations had facilitated expansion of U.S. management consultancies in Europe. South Korean government banned establishment of local offices by foreign business providers. South Korea has remained a tough market ever since they banned marketing consultancies from opening offices. All this changed in 1997. At that time, the South Korean economy entered into a severe economic crisis. The IMF demanded South Korea should fundamentally change its markets and restructure its cables. Western consultancy firms positioned themselves as key agents for implementing best practices in South Korean economy. Consultancies benefited from the demand for their services. These services included debt reduction, downsizing, delayering, and attempts to reduce diversification. Within a few years, Western management consultancy plummeted, the economy recovered in South Korea. South Koreans began to believe that Western management consultancies were outsiders promoting Western solutions. There was strong resistance from both trade unions and managers. For Western consultants, it was impossible to tap into Korean business networks. Given South Korean intense emphasis on family and kinship, the surviving firms had a predominantly Korean staff that understood the culture better.
Management consultancy firms vary in scale. There are a wide variety of different firms today that are of many different sizes. Well-known firms with recognizable names are typically fairly large. Examples of these include McKinsey & Company and Booz Allen Hamilton. These so-called well-known firms can even include the consultancy arms of big accounting firms such as Deloitte and Ernst & Young. This being said, the majority of management consultancies out there today are actually small scale. In fact, 2/3 of all management consultants work in firms of less than 10 employees, and many consultants work as sole practitioners on their own. To put this into perspective, even though large consultancy firms employ 1/3 of all consultants worldwide, they generate half of all management consultancy revenues. Large firms have revenues per consultant that are twice that of small firms. Additionally, large consultancy firms tend to work for larger clients. This is because larger client firms tend to have bigger, more complex problems demanding services and capacity that only large consultancy firms are capable of offering. In turn, small firms tend to be hired by smaller clients. Finally, it is important to keep in mind that large firms combine specialization and breadth, whereas small firms are typically forced to specialize in a more narrow domain.
Management consultancy firms differ in scope. Scope discusses many important topics, which are the advice and assistance firms give, the roles firms play, their services they provide, and the client sectors firms deal with, as well as the geographics firms interact with. Small consultancy firms are most likely to be confined to national markets or even to local markets. What is the main point of all of this? The conclusion of what we were talking about tonight is that the management consultancy industry is very difficult to analyze. There is no common definition of management consultancy. There are 3 key dimensions of the industry, which are services provided, client sectors served, and client geographics. I hope you guys really had a great time listening to this. Have a beautiful night.